The night I lost Marcus without realizing it was supposed to be nothing more than a warm, comforting evening. I had imagined it as a small escape from the monotony of work and stress, a gathering of our closest friends and family, something simple yet meaningful. My intention was to lift his spirit, to remind him that beyond the endless deadlines and late hours at the office, there was a life that waited for him. Our life. For weeks he had been distant, his body at home but his mind elsewhere. Silent dinners, weary glances, eyes that seemed to fade before they could reach mine. I thought an evening surrounded by laughter, familiar faces, and the soft hum of comfort might bring him back, even if just for a little while. The house was bathed in a warm glow from the lamps, a soft jazz melody spilling gently through the speakers. Glasses clinked, wine poured freely, and the air carried the sound of laughter as if it were incense, wrapping itself around the room. For a moment it all felt right, as though the night might become the cure for his heaviness. As hours slipped by, a smaller circle of us found ourselves in the living room, stories being exchanged like well-worn cards at a table. The tone was playful, teasing, affectionate in that way longtime friends allow themselves to be. Someone brought up Marcus's recent attempt at assembling a coffee table, how the instructions had seemed to defeat him for hours. I picked up the story, adding little details for color, turning it into something that made the group laugh even harder. The room echoed with amusement, and more stories followed. How Marcus would chat to our dog as though it were a child. How he always left half-finished mugs of coffee scattered around the house. How the laundry perpetually slipped his mind. It was the sort of gentle teasing couples endure without thought, the kind of ribbing I had always believed was harmless. I glanced at him now and then. He smiled, yes, but the smile was pale, barely reaching his eyes. He sat too still, his hands resting perfectly in place, his body folded into a composure that looked too intentional. He wasn't angry, at least he didn't look it, but he also wasn't really there. I brushed it off as fatigue, assuming the weight of work still clung to him, and turned back toward our guests, never once realizing the quiet unraveling taking place beside me. Later, when I noticed he had slipped out of the room, I thought nothing of it. I assumed he had gone to the kitchen, or perhaps stepped outside for fresh air. The evening carried on. Guests filtered out one by one, leaving behind empty glasses and fading laughter. When the last goodbye was said and the house grew still, Marcus had yet to return. That was when unease began to coil in my stomach. I searched for him. The bedroom was empty. His wallet, phone, and keys were gone. I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. Still, I told myself he just needed space, that by morning he would be home. But the next day, instead of his return, I woke to a message. No anger, no pleading, just words that struck harder than any outburst ever could. He wrote that he felt invisible, worn down by the years of being reduced to the punchline, even in the safety of his own home. He wrote that every joke chipped away at him a little more, and that my laughter, my choice to join in, had left him alone in his pain. He said staying had become its own quiet betrayal, and so he had to leave. I read those lines over and over, each one like a weight pressing deeper into my chest. I called him again and again, but the silence stretched wider with every attempt. 2 days later, I came home from work to find a moving truck outside. Inside, the house no longer looked like ours. His closet was stripped bare. The photo from our anniversary was gone. Even the chipped ceramic mug he used every morning had vanished. The silence was no longer emptiness, it was finality. Friends began reaching out, puzzled, concerned. One told me they had noticed something that night. The way Marcus sat apart, his face quiet while laughter filled the room. Another admitted that as they left, Marcus had told them softly, "This place doesn't feel like mine anymore." Those words broke me. It wasn't about that one evening. It was about years of moments I had overlooked. The slow erosion of his dignity that I had mistaken for stillness. The way I had failed to stand with him instead of with the crowd. I wrote to him. Not a text, not an email, but a letter with pen to paper, something tangible, something human. I told him I was sorry. I told him I saw it now, how I had hurt him without meaning to, how I had made him feel small in front of the people who should have felt like family. I told him I wished I had stood beside him. I mailed it, clinging to a fragile hope. Weeks passed. Then an envelope arrived. My heart leapt, thinking maybe it was him. But inside were not his words, only legal documents. Divorce papers. No anger, no accusations, just the formality of signatures and silence. I sat on our couch, the same one we had picked together years before, and signed them. The ink bled into the paper like a wound, final and irreversible. Now when I am at gatherings and see someone teased, I watch closely. I notice who laughs and who doesn't. I wonder who in that moment feels themselves drifting further away, unseen. And I think of Marcus, the man who once loved me gently, without ridicule, who asked for so little beyond respect and kindness. The man I failed to protect, and the loss that I carry as an ache that will never fully leave me.